Jane Velez Mitchell with Jane Unchained, and I have a powerhouse group in the house today. We are going straight out live to Detroit, Michigan. Guess what? The Motor City is going vegan big time. I want to start with Lisa Smith, who is the executive director of this incredible organization, Plant-Based Nutrition and Support Group, a powerhouse group. Tell us all about it, Lisa, because it is world-changing.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you so much for having us, Jane. You know, the Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to evidence-based science about how to use essentially a whole food, plant-based, no oil diet to reverse chronic conditions, everything from heart disease to type 2 diabetes to obesity. You know, it's imperative, especially at the time we are in our history right now, that we are highly educated with what it takes to really maintain a high quality of life. And we can do that by starting with our plate. So at PBNSG, we offer culinary classes, education classes, a lot of big speaker events. We bring in some of the most phenomenal plant-based physicians from around the world to educate our community on how to use nutrition to reverse disease. Things that we've been historically told are not reversible, things that we've been historically told that we're going to have to stay on medications for the rest of our life. A lot of that is simply untrue. And we work to unravel that information at PBNSG, and it's been a phenomenal ride. I sit currently as the executive director, and I absolutely love it.
Well, and I would love to learn, what is the PBNSG Sprout Club?
Yes. So our Sprout Club is a membership-based platform where you can join from anywhere in the world. And that is where you get access to everything from our virtual events to whole food, plant-based, no oil recipes, discounts on things like our Plant Perfect recipe book, to our merchandise. And it's also a forum where our community can engage with one another to understand what this journey means, what it looks like, what can you expect after being on it for 5 days versus 5 months versus 5 years. And so we have a wide range of experiences in our community. And so the Sprout Club is used to make sure it's that extra level of support on their plant-based journey.
I'm very excited about this. Paul Chatlin, I understand that you had a health scare that was very, very frightening, life or death, and that brought you to realizing the need to go plant-based and to help form this organization. Tell us about it.
Well, it started about 7 years ago, a little bit more. Where all of a sudden I was starting to feel some severe chest pain. I came from a family that all had heart disease. I watched my 3 uncles die in their 50s from heart disease. My dad had quadruple bypass, saw him cry for 4 days. I fast forward thinking I was doing all the things that my doctor asked me to do as far as, lifestyle. I was, eating whatever he had suggested, but my cholesterol had gotten up to 350. And one day woke up and literally had that elephant on my chest, could not take more than 7 steps without stopping and sweating and just in so much pain. I went to my doctor and he heard a heart murmur. It then started the process because I went to a local cardiologist. I did all the tests up to a heart catheter and a heart biopsy. And, we scheduled that for 2 weeks out. Like a silly man, I did not share anything with my wife. I love her so much. I didn't want to upset her. But at this point, I was scared, so I wanted to get her involved to hold my hand. And I went to her office, and she was in absolute tears in her office. Her boss comes up to her and says, "What's going on with you two?" And now the miracle started. The first miracle was, after hearing the story, he made a few calls into the Cleveland Clinic, and I actually got an appointment the day before I was scheduled to go into the local hospital. So I went to the Cleveland Clinic. I did all the batteries of tests, and they were deciding whether or not I needed a heart transplant or a heart bypass. And after the catheter was done, I did not need a heart transplant, but I needed immediate bypass surgery. So second miracle was, out of the hundreds of cardiologists at the Cleveland Clinic, I was assigned the one doctor whose mentor in medical school was Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. So think about it. I got in much sooner than most people ever could. I was assigned a doctor whose mentor was Dr. Esselstyn. I'd never met my doctor until that day. I never even heard of Caldwell Esselstyn until that day.
And what did he say?
He looked at me, he said, "I'm being wheeled in for bypass surgery." He stops me at the door and he said, "Would you consider a nutrition change and maybe we don't need bypass surgery?" I immediately said, I'll do anything. Well, I didn't know what nutrition was. So I didn't know that the next day I was going to be on a call with Dr. Esselstyn, and I was giving up meat, dairy, and oil, which is the foundation of my total existence. I mean, I love all those foods, but I realized I just didn't want to continue this. I got 3 sons. I knew it had to stop in my family, and if changing what I ate, I did it.
Okay, so you went vegan. How long ago was that?
7 years and a month or so.
And what happened to your health briefly?
Well, I'm sorry, but briefly is a tough word for me.
It's a tough word for a lot of people.
It really is. Okay, so briefly, I went whole food, plant-based, and within 2 weeks, the angina went away. Okay, fast forward, I've lost 80 pounds. My cholesterol today dropped from 350 down to 88.
Whoa.
More importantly, as a product of the 70s, I have never felt better. I got so much energy every day, and I'm never sore. So I'm enjoying the healthiest time of my life, and I owe it all to what I eat.
Well, listen, you guys are absolutely amazing. You're both in tremendous shape. You're carrying the message. And I want to thank Tonia Carrier, who's also a Motor City native, for introducing me to these 2 incredible people and this incredible organization that I hope to work with, Plant-Based Nutrition and Support Group. Now, Tonia, you are one of our new contributors. You just reached out to Jane Unchained, which is a digital news network for veganism, animal rights, the climate, and human health, to end world hunger and all the other great things that happen, and some of these reversible and preventable human illnesses. You reached out and you said, hey, I want to be a contributor. And we were like, sure, great. We want someone in Detroit. Little did we know that a lot of your videos go viral. So we're going to play a little montage of some of your videos, because there's some about Tonia that when she goes cooking, everybody starts looking.
Hello. Okay. So the salad, again, you're going to a barbecue, you had this full of like maybe, 12 of them in here or something. Take this whole thing to the barbecue, throw them on the grill when you get there, easy breezy. But it's just a really fun, easy, cool way. I just happened to have this in the cupboard, and I was like, why not mix it together and make it up? Just want to show you guys. We have so many options. We've got brats, more traditional brats. We've got more traditional hot dogs from Light Life. And now we've got carrot dogs. So, also I had a half of an accidentally vegan frosting.
This is your life, Tonia Carrier.
Yeah, and Tonia, just out of nowhere, called us up, and then something about Tonia's videos, I actually show them to other people. I say, look, her videos get a lot of views. You're very engaging. You're very high energy, and people find it entertaining to watch.
Thank you.
But it does raise a point, because you're showing people that everything they like, all their comfort foods, their hot dogs, their cakes, et cetera, that they can be made 100% plant-based. And that's important for a lot of people, because some people, the first thing they say is, well, where do you get your protein? Which is, of course, nonsense. There's more protein calorie per calorie in kale than there is in steak. But then they say, what do you eat? So let me ask you, Lisa, how do you bridge the gap between people saying, oh, I know I need to reduce my cholesterol. I know I need to transition, bring more fruits and vegetables into my diet. And that means transition to a plant-based diet. But I still want those comfort foods. Now, you're like the PhD on this. You're no oil, no processed sugar.
Yeah.
I'm sure you don't eat a lot of salt. So that's called the SOS, no sugar, oil, salt diet, which is, it's kind of like there's people who jog and then there's triathletes. You're the triathlete in the food, in the plant-based food world. How do we get people to transition? Because I struggle with it a lot. I gave up sugar one day at a time, knock on wood, December 28th. I've slipped before on sugar, though, I have to say. So far, so good. But it is a journey. How do we navigate that path as a vegan community?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that we hold strongly at PBNSG, and that I've always held in my career, is education first and foremost. So a lot of people come into this journey knowing basic things like sugar isn't good for me, right? Or excess meat isn't good for me, but they don't know the why. And so I think educating on a deeper level is huge for me personally, because if someone knows, for example, that refined sugar is one of the leading causes of dementia or Alzheimer's, inflammation in the body, and that it feeds cancer cells, right? That may put a different perspective on it. So that's first and foremost. Make sure that you show up to this lifestyle curious enough and willing to engage in more educational platforms, and not just think that all you have to do to be successful is remove animal products. Just removing animal products from your diet is not enough. Most of us approach this diet for health reasons, right? And so if you're trying to reach a certain level of optimal health, you have to understand that the things you've been historically putting in your body are killing you, but you have to know why and how that's happening, right? Education is first for me. Then we can get into, okay, now we need recipes, we need blogs, we need people like Tonia who are doing these phenomenal videos. We have to then engage with, how do I cook now? How do I shop? How do I dine out? That's actually the easy part. It's just coming to terms with, you mean to tell me that I didn't have to have type 2 diabetes or high cholesterol, even though it ran in my family? You mean heart disease doesn't have to be my fate, or obesity doesn't have to be my fate, although that's all I've ever seen. So it's knowing that health, optimal health, is available to you. It's education, and then it's tapping into these other resources to transition in a healthy manner, because all vegan food, like we talked about offline, Jane, is not healthy. And so we promote a truly plant-based diet where you're using whole, unmanipulated foods to reach optimal health.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. When there weren't all these products, people would say, well, I can't go vegan because I love my burgers, my ribs, my, well, they're not their ribs to begin with, but their food, their comfort food, right? Yeah. So then we created all these comfort foods. Yeah. We created, now there are burgers that are 100% plant-based that are so meat-like that vegans can't even eat them because it tastes too much like meat. Yeah. Okay. So right. Then they say, wait a second, this is processed. One of the things that I want to point out, and I watch them on these cable networks talking about, for example, Beyond Meat, which was the most successful initial public offering since the 2008 financial crisis, a super, super success. Did any of these network anchors ever care about health and processed food until Beyond Meat came along? Did they ever point out that processed meat is officially cancer causing according to the World Health Organization? No. And so all of a sudden they're concerned about processed. When, if you look at some processed food that is vegan, it is simply mushed together. I mean, tofu is processed. It's soybeans mushed together. That doesn't make it automatically unhealthy. So the non-doctors who don't know anything are now throwing this word process around because they're biased against vegan products. Yeah. However, my personal belief is that these vegan products are really great for people to transition, but they're not something that you need to have every single day exclusively. Like, I have Beyond Meat in my refrigerator. Do I eat it every day? No. Am I going to have a cookout hopefully one day when things get back to normal? Sure. And then I'll have that, or I'll have a hamburger, a vegan hamburger once a week. So is it about, Paul, is it about balance?
When you say balance, I mean, it depends on where you're at. As an organization, we do not judge anybody. We accept them on their journey. But if you're looking for optimal health, it is whole food, plant-based. So something like Beyond Meat, which would be a good bridge between processed meats and animals to a whole food plant-based. It's still not that healthy. Look at, it's got 21 ingredients to it. So we really do try to give people the optimal diet and show them what it could do for them and how to get there. But then we hold their hands along the way.
Right. And let me say this. I feel that, and I know, I would testify in a court of law, and I talk to doctors all the time. Beyond Meat burgers are 1,000 times healthier than animal burgers, 1,000 times. So if the person's choosing between a Beyond burger and a meat burger, it's better to choose the Beyond burger. But I understand what you guys are saying is, let's also bring those vegetables in. We have been so conditioned to eat processed food that it's almost like, what is a vegetable? Yep. And so Let me ask you about your personal journey, Lisa, because obviously you're the picture of optimal health. You're the executive director of the Plant-Based Nutrition and Support Group. What is your journey that brought you here?
Yeah, it was a career shift. I lost 65 pounds myself, Jane, but I did that actually before I became vegan. So I started with a personal trainer January 12th. We began to do the work by changing my diet as much as we could and exercising. I lost 65 pounds, but when I moved abroad, I've lived in Rome and I lived in China, and living in two different continents back to back, I saw the vast difference in the way they consume food there versus in America. And so when I got back to the US, I realized we were doing something totally wrong. So I ditched my career in social work and teaching, decided to move over into health and wellness. And that's when I began to deep dive into the nutrition science. So me, I'm a little bit of a geek. I love reading and studying, like obsessively. And so I began to realize that a whole food plant-based diet was the most optimal diet on the planet for long life and longevity. And so I used myself as a guinea pig first. And so when I went plant-based vegan, I only lost 5 extra pounds because I was already close to my ideal weight, my body's ideal weight. But the biggest game changer for me was the cognitive functioning. So now, not only do I, run PBNSG, I have 2 of my own health and wellness companies. And so running 3 health and wellness companies full time would be impossible without firing on all cylinders. And I attribute that to my diet. And so the weight loss, the cognitive functioning, the not being on any prescribed drugs or meds, the mental health, all of that comes from my diet and the course that it takes, that the elevation that you go through when you become more compassionate with the earth, that starts to translate into every area of your life. And it's been amazing.
Wow, that I can't imagine it being said better than that. So how do we convince people who are being conditioned day in and day out with these TV commercials? And I am always stunned every night because I do keep up with the news. Obviously, there's a lot happening in the news today. We're in a tremendous upheaval on all fronts. We have basically at least a triple crisis. We have the protests against the murder of George Floyd at the hands of a police officer, the Black Lives Matter movement. We have the pandemic, which is now coming back up. According to the latest reports that I read, there's some increase in the number of coronavirus crises, so that's not over. And then we have climate change. People haven't been talking a lot about climate change in the last couple of weeks, but we are still marching, racing towards extinction if we continue on our behavior path. And climate change we could immediately begin to reverse climate change today if everybody transitioned to a plant-based diet, because we're only 7.8 billion humans. We are raising and killing, and in between torturing 70 billion land animals every year. And then if you add fish, it's in the trillions. And it's look, they say it's a leading cause of climate change. There's a new white paper that makes a very persuasive argument that it is the leading cause of climate change, of greenhouse gas emissions. But it's not disputed that it's the leading cause of habitat destruction. It's the main reason why they're burning down the Amazon. 20 Manhattans since the first of the year, unabated, accelerated during the pandemic, in fact, because people are distracted. It's the leading cause. Because it's the leading cause of habitat destruction, it also makes it the leading cause of wildlife extinction. You destroy the home of the animals die. It's the leading cause of human world hunger. Animals eat something like 40 times, at least, depending on the species, what they produce as food. It takes 8 to 25 pounds of grain to make a pound of steak. And so it's the leading cause of human world hunger. It is the source of the pandemics. Conspiracy theories aside, the probability that this emanated from a live wet market in China is overwhelming. The evidence is overwhelming. SARS also came from a live wet market. Mad cow disease, avian flu. We could also be facing the next pandemic that's based on abuse of animals in the food system. And then you guys make the argument about health. Until the coronavirus came along, the leading killer was heart disease. It kills 1 out of every 4 Americans. I see it here. I see people barbecuing in the summertime And then the ambulances come a couple of months later, wheeling people out. Then they're on walkers and strokes and everything else. But honestly, sometimes it feels like it's impossible to make the connection with people. It's impossible. If you say to them, look, just switch out some of the things on that grill, and you don't have to have heart disease. You don't have to have a stroke. It's all based on your arteries getting clogged with plaque. Plaque is from cholesterol. There's no cholesterol in vegan products because plants do not produce cholesterol. You know, I have to ask you to address that, both of you. Let's start with you, Paul.
Well, a couple of things. First, for anybody who's kind of curious, to make that change, first of all, you can't force anybody. It's going to be up to them. But, you know, my taste buds from a total meat, dairy eater, oil eater consumer, my taste buds change in 14 days. So I went from never having vegetables, not a lot of fruit, to saying, hey, this isn't bad, okay? I also believe that we have to get it right with the humans. So unfortunately, us humans are pretty selfish creatures. I'm a big fan of animal rights and definitely the planet, but we've got to get it right with the humans and get them on board to save this planet, because we only have one planet. That's it. That's all we got. So that's kind of how I feel about what we need to do to make a change, and we're just doing our small part.
Yeah.
Lisa.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 1,000% with Paul. I don't think anybody arrives here kicking and screaming. And so it's not about trying to convince somebody. It's about, you know, once they show up to the table and just ask for that bit of information, or just curious about why your salad doesn't have cheese on it, right? That's your opportunity to plant a seed. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that we tell people, we talk to them, and they never change. But what really happens is, like, by the time somebody enrolls in my course, or by the time somebody buys, you know, the PBNSG recipe book, plenty of seeds have been planted from multiple people. So we're on a continuum in this journey, and it's all of our responsibilities to plant the seeds along the way. You may never see the fruits of your labor, but don't become frustrated or overwhelmed with the human experience, because you have been given the courtesy to arrive in your journey in your time, and to allow other people that same courtesy. And so the same compassion that we want to have for the earth and animals, we need to have with other humans. And so I think just making sure that we focus on more of a collective society versus an individualistic society. So if I'm talking to someone right now who is ready to make the change, attach yourself to an entity, a person, a blog, a recipe book, where you can learn more than what you know right now, because trying to be successful with the level of knowledge you already have won't work. So the next step is collaboration.
I love that. Go ahead, Tonia.
Oh, sorry. But thank you. I was just going to say, like, that's the beauty about veganism in general, or a plant-based diet in general, is that one thing, of course, can heal so many of, you know, it can take care of the environment, it can take care of the animals, and it can take care of our health. And even though I'm still overweight, I say this in my talks when I give vegan talks and education, I say, like, even though I'm overweight, I still have experienced so many good things with my diet, because I went into veganism being overweight. So I am working on it, everything, but I have, like, I've not been sick, knock on wood, in probably 3.5 years. I've been vegan for 4.5 years, but I have not had so much as a cold in 3.5 years. So I'm so thankful for that. So it's just so nice that one thing can fix so many of our planet and our health ills. I just wanted to stress one more thing too, Jane, is now not you guys now, like, of course we love Jane Velez Mitchell here, but she has a documentary on Amazon, Countdown to Year Zero. So with what Jane was saying about the environment, that is a really, really great resource, a great documentary if you guys want to find out more about the environment. And it's so well put too. It was really edited so well, because I remember, like, the first 15 minutes, I was just like, the way it was worded was very helpful. So I actually want to study that video and steal from it, actually, and pass that information on to more people. But I do want to say, like, I'm so glad that we got to do this. Thank you so much, Jane, for bringing this Detroit-based group, PBNSG, to your viewers. One thing, like, being an animal rights activist in Detroit, and also in my everyday life, like when I'm with friends or if I'm just doing something one-on-one, it is really nice as an animal rights based activist to be able to have a resource to be able to, because of course, if you're talking about animals, it does have to do with diet. And people always ask questions about, like, well, they'll ask us like diet questions. And it's so nice to have a nice resource where we can actually hand over a PBNSG card and give them something tangible that these people can look up on their own and join one of their meetings in their hometown. Sometimes start a new meeting because there's meetings scattered all over the place. So it's just really a great resource so that an animal rights activist can kind of do their thing and pass those people on to the information that they want to know, because it really does take all different ways of coming to a vegan or plant-based diet.
Well, yeah, and I want to say something about the psychology of diet, because I think 90% of it is psychological and something that's ignored. I have the dubious honor of being a bit of an expert in addiction. I'm 25 years sober last April, knock on wood, one day at a time. And then in December 28th, a good friend of mine who's vegan, who looked so good, said, I gave up processed sugar and maybe you should try it. And something about the way he said it, very non-judgmental, I thought, yeah, because I struggle with my weight and I have struggled particularly with sugar cravings. Well, something about the way he said it, I just said, yeah, I'm going to try it. And so since December 28th, one day at a time, I'm not having added sugar. I do have dates, I do have stevia, and I do have monk sugar that I sprinkle on things, but I'm making alternatives to the guilty pleasures that I used to love, like vegan ice cream. And now I make a banana strawberry concoction that's actually very good. I have little containers, 1/2 pint containers. You know, when I was a kid, because I think a lot of it has to do with sizes. When I was a kid, we used to have 1/4 pints and 1/2 pints. Now you go to a store to buy any kind of ice cream, vegan ice cream. Obviously, I would only buy vegan ice cream. Everything is like this. You know, you go to the airport to get on a plane and you've got enough nuts to feed an army of squirrels for 2 months. And I'm wondering, well, no, of course people are overweight. You get on a plane with probably 4,000 calories and you're waiting for 8 hours. You're going to eat those. The portion sizes are just out of control in this country. And they've gotten so much worse over the years. But getting back to psychology is that deprivation creates stress. Stress creates craving. Craving leads to a binge. Binge leads to remorse. The remorse wears off. And then you have the cycle repeated over and over again. So that's one of the reasons why diets don't work. It can't be something where you're depriving yourself. You have to come at it from a completely different perspective. And I just want to ask you, I know you have to go in a minute, but Lisa, how do you deal with that aspect to get people to do something that would be normally a bit of a challenge? Yeah. First going vegan, then giving up oil, salt, and sugar.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be all about alternatives. You're right. So we do all the education and the science, and they're like, I'm convinced this is the best diet. You're right. This is amazing. But how do I do it without feeling deprived? And that's going to be like the cooking demos. We have a beautiful culinary team where we actually teach people how to cook the things they enjoy, that they historically have enjoyed, without the oil. So a lot of times when people hear, for example, no dairy, they hear no pizza, right? When they hear no dairy, right, they hear like no cheeseburger. And we're like, no, you can still enjoy pizza. We can still enjoy, you know, all the things you enjoy made differently. And so that's the first part. We have to break down that misconception that giving up this means I give up all of my favorite things. So it really starts with making sure that you have recipes, food bloggers, cooking demos, plant-based restaurants, plant-based dining out experiences where people can still, you know, realize that they can totally get just as much pleasure out of a black bean burger than when they did a hamburger, just as much pleasure out of a cheeseless pizza as they did a regular pizza. And so it's breaking down that misconception that you got to toss all your favorites out the window, because you totally don't. And all of these things existed before corporations decided to package them and monetize them. We were making burgers and dogs and all of this stuff out of whole real food, beans and legumes and grains, way before companies made a big profit out of processed junk food. So it's available.
Well, you guys are inspiring. I want to thank Tonia for introducing me to this amazing group of people. I would love our nonprofit to partner in some way with your nonprofit down the road. It's so important to bring the Heartland into this movement. We're in LA. There's a lot of people in New York, but Detroit, and I've been to the Detroit, Michigan Veg Fest several years ago, and it was massive.
Yep.
It was massive. I spoke
Growing every year bigger.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Huge.
And, you know, when this quarantine is over, when things, whatever our new normal is, eventually there will be Veg Fest again. And I can't wait to go to the Detroit Veg Fest. I was blown away, frankly, at how huge it was. It was one of the biggest Veg Fests I've been to.
Well, you should try and come to one of our meetings. I'd love to have you come out and talk to our group. If I could just say a couple really quick things. One is our website, www.pbnsg.org. You can reach out to us. This past year, we decided to expand because everyone was asking us to take our message outside of Michigan. We are now starting to go outside of Michigan. We've already entered 5 different states. We want to slow roll this with the right hosts. So I'm encouraging anybody who's interested to reach out. They can reach out to me, paul@pbnsg.org, and I'd love to have a conversation. And I want to just thank both Tonia and Jane for inviting Lisa and I. We are honored. And, you know, we're going to get through this. We're all going to get through this situation, and we're going to be healthier at the end. And we're going to work together even better, and we'll be together as one.
Wow, that's amazing. It's wonderful. And by the way, JaneUnChained just launched, and it's in beta testing. We want everybody to join, and we're tweaking it, plantbasedneighbor.com, where people can get to know the plant-based neighbors that they may not know exist. And so I urge everyone to go to plantbasedneighbor.com. You don't have to be vegan. There's 3 categories: vegan, on the journey, and veg curious, so that vegans can mentor a neighbor who is thinking about it. Just yesterday, day before yesterday, my next door neighbor said, "Hey, I'm really into this vegan thing. What food delivery services exist?" And I sent him a list of the top 10 food delivery services that are vegan, Vistro, Purple Carrot, etc., and helped him make that choice. This will facilitate that. So maybe we can also work together on plantbasedneighbor.com. And I urge everybody to sign up for it. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I want to thank you, Lisa and Paul and Tonia, for the incredible work you do for our planet, for human health, for the animals, for nature. Rock on from the Motor City.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Tonia.
Thank you all, you guys.
Bye-bye.